The story of Ivan Lendl's career. Those of you who were tennis fans throughout the 1980s have definitely watched Ivan Lendl appearing on the main stages at the center of the action. He is widely considered one of the greatest tennis players of all time. Whether taking giant lumbering strides across the Wimbledon grass to nudge a forehand winner past Boris Becker, or dismantling John McEnroe at the French Open, you could always expect the same level of imperious dominance from the Czech great: mental strength, consistent form, and rapid victory. Lendl reached 19 Grand Slam singles finals in his career. He won 8 titles and was a runner-up in 11. Not only was he number 1 in the world tennis rankings, but Ivan Lendl enjoyed success in 2016 as Andy Murray's coach as the Scot captured his second Wimbledon title. In today's video, we will be breaking down the story of Ivan Lendl's career. Born in Ostrava, Czechoslovakia on the 7th of March 1960, to say that Ivan Lendl grew up in a tennis household would be an enormous understatement. His parents were both the best tennis players in the country. His mother was number 2 in the national tennis rankings for a long time. So at the very least, Ivan was more predisposed to take up the sport than a child born to non-tennis enthusiasts might be. He played as a junior player from a young age and won the boys' singles titles at both the French Open and Wimbledon. Ivan Lendl began his professional career in 1978 and was eliminated in the first round of the French Open. It was at Roland Garros that Ivan Lendl reached his first major final in 1981. The success was not a complete surprise as he was seeded 5th and he was playing in his 7th final of the season, having played very high-level tennis for the last several years against the best players in the world. At the same time, the hard-hitting Czechoslovakian had yet to arrive at his career's peak form. At the 1980 U.S. Open quarterfinals, he lost to John McEnroe. In 1980, the Czech sensation dominated, snatching 7 titles and crushing Bjorn Borg in a Basel showdown, 6-3, 6-2, 5-7, 0-6, 6-4. By year-end, he had climbed to narrowly defeated by Borg, 6-1, 4-6, 6-2, 3-6, 6-1. Despite Connor's nickname, Lendl broke free and conquered Roland Garros in 1984. He orchestrated a legendary comeback from 2 sets down against John McEnroe, 3-6, 2-6, 6-4, 7-5, 7-5, clinching a victory that still echoes through tennis history. Undaunted by his rivals, Lendl solidified his dominance, clinching 3 Roland Garros titles, 1984, 1986, 1987, and a stunning 3 consecutive U.S. Open wins, 1985 to 1987. He stormed into the U.S. Open final 8 times from 1982 to 1989, shutting down any notion of being called a chicken. Down under, Lendl triumphed twice at the Australian Open after it switched to a hard-court surface, 1989-1990. Wimbledon proved elusive, though, with close calls in the finals against Boris Becker, 6-4, 6-3, 7-5, in 1986 and Pat Cash, 7-6, 6-2, 7-5, in 1987. In 1992, he became a U.S. citizen after a lengthy application process. Wrapping up his career in 1994, Lendl's reign saw him spend a record-breaking 270 weeks at number 1, surpassing Connor's 268 weeks. He retired with an impressive tally of 94 ATP titles. Many other victories outside of major tournaments are also interesting and of note. Lendl started 1982 by winning the Masters event. At the most important indoor event on the circuit, he beat McEnroe in the semifinals and overtook Vitas Gerulaitis by a wide margin in a 5-set final. At the U.S. Open, he scored another semifinal victory over McEnroe, but stumbled in the final against Jimmy Connors. While the Czech had achieved a huge amount in professional tennis aged only 22 years old, haters remained unconvinced. Indoors, where conditions were most predictable, Lendl was second to none. In 1982 alone, he scored a 41-0 record on the carpet and won 9 titles on the floor. He was the second seed, and as the favorite with the French that year, Ivan was eliminated in the 4th round by the 17-year-old Mats Wilander. When Lendl turned 24 in March 1984, he was number 1 in the world, having first achieved that ranking in February 1983. He had won 31 tour titles. However, in the eyes of the tennis world, the number that defined him was his number of victories in the Grand Slam final, 0. A few years later, he made headlines with the title, "The Champion No One Cares About." Time magazine, a publication renowned neither for its tact nor its veracity, described Lendl as a cool, self-centered, mean, arrogant man with a nice forehand. The tennis and sporting press were less than complimentary about Lendl. Just because he lacked the passion and belligerence of McEnroe, the powerful two-handed backhand of Jimmy Connors, and the suaveness and surgical precision of Borg, journalists were quick to dismiss him as a flash-in-the-pan competitor, dismissing as absurd the idea that Ivan could one day be a serious Grand Slam title contender himself. That is, until Lendl began to win Grand Slams consistently. For many fans, Lendl's nationality was the defining feature. At the top of the game were very few Eastern Europeans. Lendl struck a chord with the preconceived notions of a grim, mechanical Eastern European whose unyielding character had been molded by the hardships and communistic sympathies that existed behind the Iron Curtain. He rarely smiled, neither on the court nor off it. His utterances were terse and economical. He would never speak a whole sentence when a pithy word or fragment was enough. His game could be just as boring. He won points with a big serve and a bigger forehand, rarely venturing forward or deviating from a clear plan which he had rehearsed meticulously. The outsider treatment by sports journalists and magazines triggered a vicious circle. Lendl's early detachment could be attributed to natural introversion and ignorance of touring life. However, by the time he could have developed some confidence in his status and spoken more openly, the narrative of slightly grumpy, stoical foreigner was pinned to him, seemingly for good. Lendl, in particular, was not interested in winning any kind of admiration or favor from the masses. Beneath the seemingly unwelcoming exterior dwelt a thoroughly pleasant character. But when Lendl lost his fourth major final, only a handful of confidants saw this vulnerable and more reflective side of him. Curiously, Lendl eventually claimed his first slam title in his worst season of the decade. At the French Open in 1984, he defeated Wilander in the semifinals. After that, he came back from a two-set deficit to defeat McEnroe in the final of the game. After winning 15 titles in 1982 and 8 in 1983, Roland Garros, one of only 3, won in 1984. The two men faced each other 7 times in 9 months, and the final in Paris was Lendl's only victory. Training discipline and micromanagement are two of the many things that Ivan Lendl introduced in tennis. His booming inside-out forehand and a game strategy based on it underpin the champion's legacy. But many suspect that the long-term impact of Ivan, the control freak, are even greater. In 1984, Lendl bought his own property in Greenwich. After that, he famously hired the same team every year that had recreated the US Open courts to surface his own courts. Consequently, he was able to train on identical courts without having to open the gate at the end of his driveway. When Lendl embarked on this path of precision training, he discovered that it was possible to optimize his game. Not only did he hire a stringer, but he also asked for rackets with 2 different stringing strengths, one of which he only used when he got nervous. He underwent a comprehensive physical exam by Navratilova's doctor and learned that he would last longer on the court with a low-carb diet. None of this made Lendl popular, but adopting these lifestyle tweaks did enable him to compete at a high level for longer and also reassured him. Peak Lendl's run from 1985 to 1987 is one of the most impressive 3-year periods of the Open era. He won 11 titles in 1985, 10 in 1986, and 8 in 1987 while beating out players like Wilander and even younger up-and-coming talents like Becker and Stefan Edberg. He won more than 90% of his games in all 3 seasons. Most importantly, 5 of the championship victories were at Grand Slams. The only major he ultimately missed was Wimbledon. His deliberate play did not match either the speed or the small bounces of the turf, despite his comprehensive training collaboration with Roach and his increasingly thorough preparation for the grass major towards the end of his career. He reached 2 consecutive finals in 1986 and 1987, losing in straight sets both to Becker and to Pat Cash, whose playing styles were highly adapted to grass court tennis. At the Australian Open in December 1985, Lendl lost in the semifinals to Edberg in the 5th. He explained that the old tournament venue, Kooyong, should be paved. He fulfilled his wish, at least figuratively, when the Australians switched to hard courts in 1988. This allowed him a little more control, and after losing to Cash in the first hard court edition, he won titles down under in 1989 and 1990. The story of Ivan Lendl's career is an epic treatise of triumph, determination, unwavering commitment, ignoring naysayers, and focusing on discovering your own natural domain of excellence. The man lost 4 major finals and then won 8. At Flushing Meadows, he failed for 3 years in a row, but then recovered and won the next 3. This suggests that Lendl was always learning, even from defeat, and even when those around him concluded incorrectly that he couldn't have been learning from his failures because he wasn't successful straight away. Lendl's story teaches us that success can follow victory, and often does. However, there may be a waiting period as we hone our skills and time and chance take their course. We shouldn't be too hard on ourselves as long as we're trying to learn when things don't go our way at first. Eventually, we will receive the longed-for results if we simply don't give up. Despite initial defeats and a non-existent Grand Slam record at the age of 24, Lendl reached 19 finals and 8 major championships via perseverance and pure stubbornness. His story is inspiring for all those young players who are struggling in their game. You can still do it. Here is another video for you to enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for more videos. See you in the next one.